In the legendary lost ancient civilization, 4 continents sank in the ocean. They were Atlantis, the land of Moo, Lemuria, and Jindaya. Today, we will talk about the land of Moo. There is a body of water in the South Pacific where mysterious disappearances have often occurred since ancient times. Once ships and planes enter the area, compass and radio communication failures or interruptions occur. It is said that military ships have also suffered accidents there. 13 submarines from the former Soviet Union have gone missing there, and most of them were nuclear-powered submarines with advanced equipment. Some people speculate that there may be a kind of defense system left by a civilization hidden under the ocean, which caused the accidents of these nuclear submarines. Later, it was discovered that this is where the land of Moo sank. The story began in India about 155 years ago. In 1868, an unprecedented famine occurred in central India, then a British colony, causing social unrest. In order to maintain law and order, the British sent reinforcements. One of the young officers, James Churchward, was particularly fond of Oriental culture. One day, Churchward was looking at the reliefs on the walls of a monastery when a monk came up and asked, "Are you interested in these?" Churchward replied, "These reliefs look like patterns. Maybe, what's the point?" The monk nodded and said, "Yes, it's not just decoration, it's words. Every word has its own meaning." After speaking, the monk began to teach Churchward how to read and understand the words. Churchward soon became close friends with the monk and learned the meaning of various patterns and hieroglyphs from him. One day, they found some ancient clay tablets in the secret warehouse of the monastery, covered with patterns made of straight and curved lines. Legend has it that they were engraved with the stories of ancient human beings. Churchward and the monk began to delve into the ancient clay tablets and finally figured out their content. It was an unheard-of historical story from long, long ago, recorded by the Holy Brother Nekar, who was sent to India from the land of Moo. What is the land of Moo? Moo signifies human mother, meaning the birthplace of human beings. The land of Moo was a super-civilized continent 50,000 years ago. The Moo Empire, with a population of 64 million, covered most of the South Pacific Ocean, from Tahiti in the south to the Hawaiian Islands in the north, and from Easter Island in the east to the Mariana Islands in the west. It was about 8,000 kilometers long from east to west and about 5,000 kilometers wide from north to south. Its area was equivalent to the sum of the areas of North and South America. There were 7 cities on this continent. The capital was called Hiranibra. Hiranibra had a large population and was very prosperous. The streets were paved with neat stone slabs, and the buildings on both sides of the street were decorated with metal to look magnificent. The people of the Moo Empire were very fond of the lotus, which was the national flower there. The Moo people were highly intelligent. They were proficient seafarers and made exquisite handicrafts. Initially, they sailed eastward, from Central America to South America, creating the Karla Empire. Later, they sailed westward again, landing in Burma in South Asia and establishing the Nayakal Empire in the direction of India. According to legend, the science and technology of the Nayakal Empire even surpassed that of the Moo Empire. They invented flying machines, and they often flew back to their hometown, the Moo Empire, bringing all kinds of rare treasures to the people there. Was there really such a highly civilized continent in the vast Pacific Ocean? Despite everything about the land of Moo that was clearly written on the clay tablets, they couldn't believe it. With an adventurous spirit and a love of learning, Churchward was determined to dedicate his life to exploring this legendary continent. Churchward first visited monasteries across India, then traveled to Tibet, Thailand, Cambodia, and the Pacific Islands to discover the relics and legends of the land of Moo. Churchward was convinced that the land of Moo did indeed exist on the Pacific coast, based on investigations from his adventurous travels. Not only Easter Island, but many countries and islands along the Pacific coast had the story of the lost civilizations of Moo. The Madrid Codex, held by the Museo de America in Madrid, also had a record of the land of Moo, a collection of ancient Maya legends or myths written in Maya script. It was the same as the clay tablet of the Holy Nayakal brothers, both from the Book of Land of Moo. In the Madrid Codex, the sinking of the land of Moo is described. On a certain day of a certain year, a strong earthquake occurred, which lasted until a certain month. The land of Moo fell victim, and the subterranean flame, shaking the land of Moo, blew twice. It disappeared one night, and the pent-up flames caused the land to rise and fall several times in different places. In the end, the surface cracked. 10 countries were divided, and they sank along with 64 million people. There was another book called Cortesianus Codex that recorded Maya civilization and the land of Moo. In Southeast Asia, Egypt, Greece, Central America, Mexico, and other places, there were some murals related to the Moo continent. Churchward spent half his life collecting a large amount of information, and the evidence was carefully compiled and written. In 1926, The Lost Continent of Moo was published, describing in detail the prosperity of the land of Moo, as well as its destruction. Although it remains to be verified whether many conclusions in the book are correct, it does provide some clues for the origin of human civilization. Some historical traces also seem to support its existence. Many researchers believe that Easter Island, famous for its hundreds of giant human-shaped stone statues, was a part of the land of Moo that somehow survived the disaster and didn't sink to the bottom of the ocean. Easter Island is in the southeastern Pacific Ocean and covers an area of about 117 square kilometers. In 1686, the British navigator Edward Davis first landed on the island. He found that the place was desolate, but there were hundreds of giant stone statues facing the sea with majestic expressions, carved from a single piece of dark red igneous rock. They did not match the civilization of the island. It seemed that the art of these prehistoric masterpieces was alien. There were many unfinished stone carvings scattered in and around the crater bowl, as well as thousands of rough stone picks, indicating that the carving work was suddenly interrupted. Who made these statues? One theory is that these stone statues were carved by people on the island. However, the high nose bridge, neck, mouth, and lips of the stone statues were typical of Caucasian features, while the inhabitants of the island were Polynesians. And the appearance, in Polynesians, of these characteristics was different. Not only that, but it was the Paleolithic age, and the barren productivity and food supply made it hard to believe that the people on the island would use primitive stone tools to complete such a large carving project. Moreover, there were still some stone slabs with inscriptions on Easter Island. Their words were different from the words of any country in the world, and no one has understood them so far. Near Pohnpei Island in Micronesia, in the South Pacific, there is a sunken continent on the seafloor. Divers found well-preserved streets, pillars, statues, and dwellings there. They also fished out very precious gold and jewelry from the local seabed. On the southeast side of Pohnpei Island is Temwin Island. On the coral reef, shoals that stretch out from the island, there are 89 buildings, crisscrossed with huge basalt columns reaching a height of 4 meters. From a distance, it looks strangely rocky. If you look closely, they seem to be temples. Some people say that these buildings are the tombs of people from ancient times. Experts estimate that if 1,000 strong laborers were engaged in digging every day, it would take 655 years to quarry the stone alone. In addition, it would take 200 to 300 years to process it into a pentagon or a hexagonal prism by manpower. It would take about 1550 years for the building to be finally completed. So many people speculate that Easter Island may have been separated when the land of Moo sank to the bottom of the sea. Those numerous giant stone statues and stone slabs with inscriptions are likely to be remnants of the land of Moo period. About half a century ago, Fishermen discovered that there were huge pyramids and ancient castles on the seabed southwest of Yonaguni, Japan. It is speculated that the underwater pyramid may be the remains of an ancient civilization from when the Ryukyu Islands and mainland China were still connected 15,000 years ago. Later, due to the earthquake, which caused geological changes, they suddenly sank to the bottom of the sea and are likely to be the remains of the silent land of Moo. What kind of people lived in the land of Moo? What kind of civilization did they have? Why did it suddenly disappear from the land and sink to the bottom of the sea? Nobody knows. However, the past and present life of the land of Moo is mentioned in the Thiaoba prophecy. About 1.35 million years ago, a group of yellow and black people immigrated to the Earth from the planet Bakaratini. They became the first human beings on Earth and restarted their civilization there. But 30,000 years later, a cataclysm occurred. The land began to break up into new oceans, and a giant continent rose in the Pacific Ocean. This continent is the legendary but ill-fated land of Moo. About 2,000 years later, the land of Moo was divided into 3 pieces by an earthquake. Since the geographical location of the land of Moo was basically at the equator, grasslands, vegetation, and even forests gradually appeared there over time. Since there was a narrow isthmus connecting the land of Moo in North America, some animals also began to migrate the land of Moo. About 300,000 years ago, the first humans arrived at the land of Moo. They were the yellow race. However, because such migration was still relatively difficult, the population size of the yellow race in the land of Moo did not expand rapidly. Subsequently, another group of aliens immigrated to the Earth. They were inhabitants from the planet Aram X3. Since Aram X3 was facing the dilemma of population expansion, in order to relieve pressure on the planet, they had to evacuate part of the population to other planets of the same type. So, they chose this solar system, and after many investigations, Earth was finally selected. However, the location where they first landed was not the land of Moo, but where China is now. Because the landing was too abrupt, the locals panicked. They regarded the spaceship as a fire dragon, and they attacked the intruders. In order to avoid unnecessary conflicts with the locals, the newcomers chose the inaccessible land of Moo as their base on Earth. Due to previous conflicts with the locals, they planned carefully. They designated the moon as a retreat base, just in case, and spent 50 years transforming it before embarking on a resettlement program. Probably millions of people immigrated to the land of Moo, and the yellow people who were the first immigrants died out after a few decades. Going forward, the people of Aram X3 monopolized the land of Moo. After the people of Aram X3 immigrated to the land of Moo, they started to rebuild infrastructure, agriculture, and animal husbandry. They built new pyramids, established their own religion, and so on. It can be said that the land of Moo was prosperous at that time. About 50,000 years ago, the population had already exceeded 80 million. Of course, as the population increased, they also began to migrate to southern Asia, New Guinea, Central and South America. Just as the land of Moo's development was in full swing, the disaster of extinction was secretly approaching. Around 14,500 years ago, a volcanic eruption triggered an earthquake and tsunami that caused the land of Moo to sink to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean in an instant. At the same time, the land of Moo civilization also died out. This is the description of the past and present life of land of Moo in the Thiaoba prophecy. It may take a long time to confirm whether this description is true. However, God will always deliver the real story through some people, and we will call these stories legends.